Admiral Park stood at the observation deck of the human diplomatic vessel, gazing at the massive conclave station that orbited the neutral planet Epsilon. The space structure gleamed like a jewel against the backdrop of stars. Tomorrow would mark humanity's formal introduction to the galactic community after decades of preparation. Park smoothed her uniform and tried to calm her racing heart. "Admiral, the shuttle is ready," said Lieutenant Han, her aide. "Thank you, Lieutenant. Is the presentation prepared?" "Yes, ma'am. All our technological and cultural offerings are ready." Park nodded. The United Earth government had spent years choosing their finest achievements to present to the conclave. Art, music, scientific advancements, carefully selected to make a strong first impression. The next morning, Park led the small human delegation through the grand entrance of the conclave chamber. The room was enormous, with rising tiers of seats, filled with representatives from over 200 species. Some had tentacles, others wings. Some floated in special tanks, while others wore environmental suits. The diversity was breathtaking. Species 4291. Designation: Human, from planet Earth. Sol system, announced the chamber AI. Approaching for formal recognition and potential membership. Park walked forward, her steps echoing in the sudden quiet. She reached the central podium and began her prepared speech. "Esteemed members of the Galactic Conclave, we come in peace and friendship." A loud snort interrupted her. It came from the Vecturian section, tall, bird-like creatures with metallic feathers and sharp beaks. "They sent a soft skin to address us," said one Vecturian loudly. "How quaint." Several delegates chittered with laughter. Park paused but continued with dignity. "We offer our knowledge and seek to learn from yours. Earth hopes to become a valued member of this ancient and honorable." Ancient and honorable? The Vecturian representative stood, his feathers glinting under the chamber lights. "You crawled out of your atmosphere mere centuries ago. My species had mastered star travel, when yours was still hunting with pointed sticks." More laughter spread through the chamber. "Ambassador Mock," cautioned the Arbiter, a floating, crystalline being who moderated the proceedings, "please allow the humans to complete their presentation." Park nodded thanks and tried again. "We bring technological innovations that may benefit all—" "Like what?" interrupted Mock. "Combustion engines? Primitive fission? We mastered quantum field manipulation 10,000 years ago." Park activated her data tablet, showing images of Earth's cities, art, and technological achievements. "These are our offerings for trade and shared knowledge." "Pathetic," hissed another delegate from the reptilian section. "Their ships still use reaction drives." The mockery continued as Park attempted to showcase human achievements. Each innovation was met with derision or bored sighs. By the time she finished, her face remained composed, but her knuckles were white from gripping the podium. The Arbiter floated forward. "Despite the unusual reception, the conclave provisional membership protocols must be followed. The human delegation is granted observer status pending full review." As Park and her team were escorted to their assigned quarters, they passed groups of delegates who whispered and pointed. Some even took images as if humans were curious specimens in a zoo. "That went well," muttered Lieutenant Han sarcastically. "It went exactly as expected," replied Park calmly. Han looked surprised. "You expected ridicule?" Director Kim's assessment predicted this response. "It's why our real achievements remain classified." Later that evening, Park secured her quarters and activated a quantum-encrypted channel. Director Kim's hologram appeared, his weathered face serious. "How bad was it?" he asked without preamble. The Vecturians led the mockery. Others followed. "They see us as primitive newcomers, barely worth acknowledgement." Kim nodded slowly. "Good. Operation Sleeping Giant continues as planned. Keep them underestimating us." "They mentioned our primitive propulsion systems," Park added. "If they only knew what's hiding in Jupiter's clouds." "They must never suspect," Kim stressed. "Not until it's necessary." The Daybreak is now at 87% completion. The other three vessels are at 62%, 58%, and 41% respectively. Park looked out at the alien station visible through her window. I don't like deception, Director. Neither do I, Admiral. But Earth's history taught us a hard lesson. New civilizations encountering technologically superior ones rarely thrive, without leverage. They laugh at us now, Park said quietly. Let them laugh, replied Kim. History is filled with empires that underestimated their supposed inferiors. We'll reveal our true capabilities only when necessary, and not a moment sooner. As the call ended, Park watched alien ships zooming gracefully around the station. Despite the day's humiliation, she felt strangely calm. Humanity had always thrived when underestimated, and now, hidden within Jupiter's storms, the greatest warship ever built was nearing completion. A secret guardian, for a species the galaxy, had foolishly decided not to take seriously. 3 years had passed since humanity joined the Galactic Conclave. Admiral Park stood at the viewport of the human embassy, watching the endless stream of alien ships docking at the massive station. Despite years of diplomatic efforts, Earth's position remained precarious. The mockery had faded into cold tolerance, but little respect had been earned. Her communication device chimed with an urgent signal. "Admiral, you need to see this," said Lieutenant Han, rushing into the room. His normally calm face showed clear distress. The holographic display activated, showing Director Kim. His expression was grim. "We've lost contact with New Darwin Colony," he reported. "All communication ceased 6 hours ago." Park felt her heart sink. New Darwin was one of humanity's most distant outposts, home to 8,000 colonists. Could it be equipment failure? She asked, knowing the answer. Negative. Our long-range scanners detected energy signatures consistent with Vecturian weapons technology. This was an attack. Before Park could respond, another alert sounded. Then another. 2 more colonies had gone silent. 3 colonies in 1 day, Park whispered. This is no coincidence. The Security Council has called an emergency session. Kim continued. You need to demand conclave intervention immediately. Within hours, Park stood before the conclave chamber. The usual buzz of conversation died as she took the central podium. Esteemed members of the Galactic Conclave, she began, her voice steady despite her anger. 3 human colonies have been attacked without warning. Thousands of civilians are missing or dead. We invoke Article 17 of the Membership Charter, which guarantees protection against unprovoked aggression. Murmurs spread through the chamber. The floating crystalline form of the Arbiter moved forward. These are serious allegations, Admiral Park. Do you have proof of these attacks? Park activated her datapad, projecting images of the colonies before and after the attacks. The after images showed only smoking ruins. Our sensors detected Vecturian energy signatures at all 3 locations, she stated. Ambassador Mock rose from the Vecturian section, his metallic feathers gleaming under the lights. The human spreads lies, he said smoothly. Those territories fall within ancient Vecturian space lanes. We were simply reclaiming what is rightfully ours. Those colonies were established in accordance with conclave settlement protocols, Park countered. 8,000 civilians lived there. Mock flicked his wing dismissively. Unfortunate casualties of your government's poor choice of settlement locations. Park looked around the chamber, seeking support. She found only averted eyes and uncomfortable silence. Will the conclave honor its charter, she demanded, or are the protections offered to members merely words? The Arbiter floated higher. The conclave must deliberate on this matter. Both sides present compelling. There is nothing to deliberate. Park's voice echoed through the chamber. This was an unprovoked attack on civilian targets. Enough. Mock strode to the center of the chamber. Let us dispense with this charade. The Vecturian Empire has tolerated human expansion long enough. Your species is barely civilized, yet you claim equal standing with races that have traveled the stars for millennia. He turned to address the entire conclave. The Vecturian fleet has secured what we call the Outer Reach. Human presence there was always temporary, a mistake we have now corrected. Gasps and murmurs filled the chamber. Such blatant aggression violated numerous conclave treaties. This is an act of war, Park stated firmly. Mock made a sound that might have been laughter. War? No, Admiral. War implies both sides have a chance of victory. This is merely on pest control. He activated his own display, showing hundreds of Vecturian warships positioning themselves throughout human space. Your species has exactly 3 standard cycles to withdraw from all outer colonies. Those worlds belong to the Vecturian Empire. Now, if you resist, we will take not just those worlds, but all human settlements. Park stood frozen, watching the overwhelming force displayed before her. Earth's defense fleet was a fraction of this size, with far less advanced technology. This is illegal under Conclave law, she finally said. Then let the Conclave stop us. Mock looked around the chamber challengingly. Not one representative met his gaze. The Arbiter's voice was apologetic. Border disputes between member species are bilateral matters. The Conclave cannot intervene directly. Park looked at the faces of 200 species, many of whom had laughed at humanity years before. Now they watched in silence as human colonies were threatened with extinction. 3 cycles, Admiral, Mock repeated. Bring your surrender documents. Here and your core worlds may be spared. As Park left the chamber, her communication device vibrated. It was a coded message from Director Kim. Operation Daybreak now authorized. Despite everything, Park felt a small smile form. The Vecturians had just made a terrible mistake. For 3 years they had mocked humanity as weak and primitive. Soon, they would learn just how wrong they had been. The Conclave chamber buzzed, with tension as the final hours of the Vecturian ultimatum ticked away. Representatives from across the galaxy had gathered to witness what many assumed would be humanity's formal surrender. At the center of the chamber, Ambassador Mock stood with his metallic feathers puffed in triumph, flanked by Vecturian military officers. The human delegation approaches, announced the chamber AI. All eyes turned toward the entrance. Admiral Park walked in alone, her blue uniform crisp and her posture straight. She carried only a small device in her hand, not the expected stack of surrender documents. Where are your officials? Your surrender party? Mock demanded, his beak clicking in irritation. I speak for Earth today, Park replied calmly. Then present, your surrender documents so we can conclude this tedious matter. Park smiled slightly. I'm afraid I've brought something else. She activated the small device in her palm. A holographic display appeared in the center of the chamber, causing gasps to ripple through the assembly. The hologram showed the gas giant Jupiter, its swirling storms moving across its massive surface. What is this? Some final tourist display of your solar system? Mock scoffed. Watch, Park said simply. The hologram zoomed in on Jupiter's southern hemisphere, focusing on the famous Great Red Spot. As the Conclave watched, something massive began to emerge from within the storm. First came a pointed bow section, then a main hull that seemed to stretch endlessly. The object rising from Jupiter's clouds was clearly artificial and impossibly huge. By the first stars, whispered a Centauri delegate. The vessel continued to rise until it hovered above Jupiter's storms. It was a warship, but unlike any the galaxy had ever seen. 3 kilometers in length, with a dark hull that seemed to absorb rather than reflect light. Strange energy patterns pulsed along geometric patterns on its surface. The HSS Daybreak, Park announced to the stunned chamber. The first of humanity's Dreadnought-class vessels. Ambassador Mock's feathers flattened against his body. Impossible. Your species does not possess this technology. For 15 years, while you mocked our primitive achievements, we built this in secret, Park explained, hidden within Jupiter's storms, safe from prying sensors and spy satellites. The hologram changed to show the ship's interior, strange engines that seemed to bend light itself, weapon systems unlike any known design, and hull material that appeared to shift between solid and energy states. Our scientists discovered principles of dark matter manipulation that your species overlooked, Park continued. Perhaps because you were so certain of your technological superiority, you stopped looking for new approaches. The Arbiter floated forward. Admiral Park, are you claiming that humans have developed technology unknown to the rest of the Conclave? We kept many things hidden. Park nodded. A survival strategy learned from Earth's own history. When meeting potentially hostile advanced civilizations, it's wise to maintain certain advantages. Ambassador Mock recovered some of his composure. One ship, however advanced, cannot stand against the Vecturian armada. Park smiled again. Who said there was only one? The hologram shifted to show Saturn, where a second massive vessel was emerging from within the planet's rings, camouflaged until now by careful positioning and stealth technology. Then Mars appeared, where a third dreadnought rose from a hidden underground facility beneath the Olympus Mons colony. Finally, Earth's moon rotated to reveal a massive construction bay on its far side, where a fourth dreadnought was in its final stages of completion. Complete silence filled the conclave chamber. While you laughed at our primitive space program, we built these, Park said quietly. While you mocked our colonial efforts, we were establishing the manufacturing bases needed to create vessels of this size. Every primitive step was calculated to reinforce your perception of us as harmless newcomers. This changes nothing, Mock declared, though his voice lacked conviction. The Vecturian Empire still demands. The Vecturian Empire will stand down its forces immediately, Park interrupted. You will withdraw from human territory, compensate the families of those killed in your attacks, and issue a formal apology to the Conclave for violating its charter. She looked around the chamber at the shocked faces of hundreds of alien species. Humanity came to the stars in peace, seeking friendship and cooperation. Instead, we were met with mockery and then violence. We hoped to never reveal our true capabilities, but you've left us no choice. Park deactivated the hologram and turned to leave. At the chamber entrance, she paused and looked back. The Daybreak fleet is now moving to secure our colonies. Any Vecturian vessels remaining in human space in 12 hours will be considered hostile. Choose wisely, Ambassador. As Park departed, the chamber erupted into chaos. Species that had dismissed humanity now frantically reassessed everything they thought they knew about the newcomers from Earth. And Ambassador Mock, his feathers now completely flat against his body, hurriedly began composing a message to the Vecturian High Command. The hunt had suddenly, unexpectedly, become very dangerous indeed. Captain Lee stood on the command bridge of the HSS Daybreak, his hands clasped behind his back as he studied the main view screen. Before him, displayed in vivid tactical holography, was the largest collection of Vecturian warships ever assembled in one place. 173 vessels of various sizes formed a blockade around New Darwin Colony, their weapons hot and shields raised. Status report, he said calmly. We're holding position just outside their sensor range, replied Navigation Officer Kang. The stealth systems are functioning at peak efficiency. And the colony? Tactical Officer Moon looked up from her console, her expression grim. The Vecturians have orbital platforms targeting the main settlement. Ground forces are already landing. We're detecting weapons fire. Lee nodded. Admiral Park's 12-hour warning period ends in 7 minutes. Are the other dreadnoughts in position? Yes, sir, said Communications Officer Jin. The sunrise is at Gamma Colony, and the horizon is approaching Beta Station. The Twilight is still in lunar orbit but ready to jump if needed. Lee took a deep breath. Humanity had hoped it would never come to this. The dreadnoughts were built as a deterrent, a last resort if diplomacy failed. Now, that failure was complete. All, hands to battle stations, he ordered. Prepare to reveal ourselves on my mark. Throughout the massive ship, crew members moved to their positions. Despite endless drills, this would be the vessel's first actual combat deployment. The Daybreak was about to show what it could really do. 3 minutes to deadline, Jin announced. On the view screen, the Vecturian fleet remained in formation, apparently confident in their overwhelming numbers. They had no idea what was coming. Sir, said Moon suddenly, they're opening fire on the colony's shield generators. Lee's face hardened. We're not waiting. Take us in, full speed. Weapon systems online. The massive dreadnought surged forward, its dark matter engines propelling it at speeds that defied conventional physics. Within seconds, it appeared at the edge of the Vecturian formation. Alarms blared across the enemy fleet as their sensors detected the sudden appearance of an enormous, unknown vessel. We are being hailed, Jin reported. On screen, Lee ordered. 3. Face of a Vecturian commander appeared, his metallic feathers bristling with shock and anger. Unidentified vessel, you have entered a military operation zone. Withdraw immediately or be destroyed. This is Captain Lee of the Earth vessel Daybreak, Lee responded. You are in violation of sovereign human territory. Power down your weapons and withdraw, or we will remove you by force. The Vecturian made a harsh sound that might have been laughter. One ship against our fleet? Your species' arrogance truly knows no bounds. This is your final warning, Lee said simply. Target that human monstrosity. The Vecturian commander ordered his fleet before cutting the transmission. Lee turned to his tactical officer. Defensive systems at maximum. Prepare to demonstrate our capabilities. Dozens of Vecturian energy weapons fired simultaneously, converging on the Daybreak. The bridge crew watched calmly as the incoming fire approached. Impact in 3, 2, 1. Moon counted down. When the barrage struck the Daybreak, something extraordinary happened. Instead of deflecting or absorbing the energy, the ship's dark matter shields seemed to consume it. Glowing patterns across the hull brightened as the vessel's systems converted the enemy fire into usable power. Shield strength increasing by 12%, reported Chief Engineer Song over the intercom. The energy conversion systems are working even better than our simulations predicted. The Vecturian fleet fired again with the same result. The more they attacked, the stronger the Daybreak became. They're surrounding us, Kang noted, attempting to box us in. Let them, Lee replied. Weapon status? Graviton cannons charged and ready, said Moon. Select targets. Disable, don't destroy. Moon nodded and input the commands. Along the Daybreak's hull, ports opened to reveal weapons unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. Fire, ordered Lee. Beams of concentrated gravitational force lanced out from the Dreadnought. Where they struck, space itself seemed to warp. 5 Vecturian cruisers found themselves caught in localized gravity wells so powerful that their hulls began to compress. Shields failed, engines stalled, and weapon systems went offline as the ships were effectively immobilized. By the spirits, Jin whispered as she watched the display. The Vecturian fleet responded with panic, ships breaking formation and firing wildly at the Daybreak. Again, their weapons only served to power the human vessel's systems. The enemy commander is hailing. Us again? Jin reported. The Vecturian's face now showed clear fear. What is this technology? How is this possible? We tried to warn you, Lee said simply. All Vecturian forces will withdraw from human space immediately. This is not a negotiation. All ships concentrate fire, screamed the Vecturian. Before Lee could respond, sensors detected massive energy signatures at the edge of the system. Sir, reported Kang with a smile, the HSS Sunrise, Horizon, and Twilight have arrived. The Vecturian commander's eyes widened in horror as he saw 3 more dreadnoughts appear on his sensors, each as powerful as the first, each ready for battle. Your choice, Commander, said Lee quietly. Retreat, or be the first to witness the full capabilities of humanity's dreadnought fleet in the quiet town of Millbrook, where shadows of the past lingered like morning mist. Marcus Reynolds stood at the crossroads of an unexpected journey. His hands trembled slightly as he unfolded the weathered letter from his grandmother's safe deposit box, a document that would change everything he thought he knew about his family. The letter revealed a secret that had been buried for decades. Marcus learned that his grandfather, Thomas Reynolds, had not died in the war as the family had always believed. Instead, he had survived, but chose to disappear, leaving behind a complex web of relationships and unresolved mysteries. Sarah Collins, a local historian who had been researching the town's historical records, became an unexpected ally. She had stumbled upon old documents that seemed to connect the dots of Thomas's hidden life. Her research suggested that Thomas had not abandoned his family by choice, but had been caught in a dangerous web of local political intrigue that forced him into silence. As Marcus dug deeper, he discovered that his grandfather had been involved. in exposing a significant corruption scheme in the local government during the late 1950s. The powerful men he had challenged had threatened not just his career, but his entire family's safety. To protect his wife and young son, Marcus's father, Thomas had made the impossible choice to disappear. The town of Millbrook held its breath. Old secrets were like fragile glass, ready to shatter at the slightest touch. Some residents who remembered those days watched Marcus with a mixture of curiosity and fear. They knew pieces of the story that had been whispered behind closed doors for generations. Sarah helped Marcus trace the last known movements of his grandfather. They found an old cabin deep in the woods, hidden from view and seemingly untouched for decades. Inside, they discovered a collection of journals, photographs, and documents that told a story far more complex than anyone had imagined. Thomas's journals revealed a man of incredible courage. He had risked everything to protect not just his family, but the entire community from a network of corrupt officials who were using their power for personal gain. The evidence he had collected could have destroyed political careers and sent multiple people to prison. But survival meant silence. Thomas had chosen to vanish, leaving behind everything he loved, to ensure his family's safety. He had watched, from a distance, making sure his wife and son were protected, never revealing his true location or status. Marcus felt a whirlwind of emotions. Anger at the injustice his grandfather had faced, pride in his grandfather's incredible sacrifice, sadness for the years of separation and lost moments. Each page of the journal revealed another layer of a man he was only now beginning to understand. The town began to stir. Whispers turned into conversations. Old secrets that had been buried for decades were now coming to light. Some residents who were children during that time remembered fragments, hushed conversations, sudden disappearances, unexplained tensions. Sarah's historical research and Marcus's personal investigation started to paint a complete picture. They discovered that Thomas had not been alone in his fight. A small group of brave individuals had supported him, risking their own safety to challenge the corrupt system. As the truth emerged, the town of Millbrook found itself confronting its own history. The neat, orderly narrative they had maintained for decades was now crumbling. People who had been considered pillars of the community were now being viewed with suspicion and doubt. Marcus knew the journey was far from over. He had uncovered a story of remarkable courage, sacrifice, and resilience. His grandfather had not been a victim, but a silent hero who had protected his family and community at great personal cost. The letter, the journals, the hidden cabin, they were more than just historical artifacts. They were a testament to the strength of one man's love and commitment. Thomas Reynolds had written his own story, not with loud proclamations, but with quiet, determined actions. As winter settled over Millbrook, Marcus felt a sense of connection he had never experienced before. He was no longer just carrying his family's name. He was carrying their untold story, their hidden legacy of courage and resilience. The truth, long buried, had finally found its way to the light.